A slap might seem like nothing, just a twitch of muscle, a flicker of temper. But when aimed at the wrong person, in the wrong city, at the wrong moment, it can become a seismic event. It can shatter reputations, unearth buried rage, and crack the mask of authority wide open. It began like any ordinary afternoon in downtown Philadelphia. The sky was clear, the sun casting long shadows between steel buildings. Horns blared from impatient drivers. Office workers spilled on his sidewalks, clutching coffee, tapping phones, laughing without urgency. Just another end to just another day. Until it wasn't. She stood on the corner of Maple and 12th, athletic frame, dark brown skin that caught the light like bronze. Her hair, long, braided, tied neatly back, rested against a black leather jacket weathered from travel. There was grit in her stance, stillness in her eyes. She wasn't lost, nor was she wandering. She was waiting, calmly, like someone who had been through worse. To the untrained eye, she was nobody. But Officer Ethan Hayes was watching her like a hawk from his patrol cruiser. He sat slouched behind the wheel, chewing the inside of his cheek, fingers tapping a restless beat on the dashboard. Ethan was a man who carried his authority like a weapon, even when his gun was holstered. Around the precinct, they called him Old School Hayes, which was code for volatile and racist, but protected by tenure. He was the kind of cop who believed control was respect, and respect was fear. And he feared women like her, black, composed, and unbothered. From the window of his cruiser, Hayes squinted. She hadn't done anything, hadn't jaywalked, hadn't said a word. But in his head, the script was already written. Something's off. She's waiting to cause trouble. It wasn't evidence he needed, it was a hunch, and in his world, that was enough. The light changed. Pedestrians moved. So did she. And that's when Hayes flicked on his sirens. The red and blue lights spun above his car. The sound split through the street. Pedestrians slowed, then froze. Eyes turned. "Hey, you." Hayes shouted. "Yeah, you with the backpack. Step over here." The woman turned, confused but not rattled. She touched her chest lightly, as if clarifying. "Me?" I said, "Get over here." Hayes barked, now stepping out of his vehicle. His boots thudded hard against the pavement. His hand rested near his holstered baton, just for show. She approached with the kind of dignity that made people stare. "Is there a problem, officer?" Hayes scoffed. "Yeah, there's a problem. You were loitering by the crosswalk. You looked like you were casing the street." The woman raised a brow, her voice firm but respectful. "I was waiting for the light to change. Like everyone else, don't get smart with me." He stepped closer. Too close. "What's in the bag?" "Books. Headphones. A bottle of water." "Put it down. Open it." "I can, but first I'd like to understand." I said, "Open the damn bag." His voice cracked like a whip, loud enough to silence traffic. Cameras were coming out now. Pedestrians paused mid-step. Some crossed the street to avoid it. Others stayed, recording, watching. She exhaled and slowly removed her backpack, setting it at her feet. "I have nothing to hide, but I want her name and badge number. I'd like to file a report after this." That was it. The moment, the spark at a black woman standing firm, asking for accountability. In his mind, she wasn't just challenging his authority. She was humiliating him. Before anyone could predict it, before his own brain could slow his hand, smack, the sound ricocheted down the street like a thunderclap. Gasps. Screams. Someone shouted, "What the hell?" The woman staggered slightly, but didn't fall. Her hand went to her cheek, her fingers trembling. Not with fear, with fury. Her eyes locked onto his, wide, stunned, not by the violence, but by the stupidity of it. Then came the phones. Dozens of them, recording, streaming, uploading. That a silence fell over the intersection, eerie and electric. Hayes stood frozen, hands still halfway raised, his face blanching under the weight of what he'd just done. And the woman, she straightened her spine, brushing a single braid from her face. Her voice came out cold and controlled. "You just made the worst mistake of your life." A young man in the crowd called out, "I got that on video." Another woman yelled, "You're going down for this." For the first time in his career, Hayes looked scared. She knelt down and picked up her backpack. Not rushed, not afraid. She zipped it slowly, as if the entire city wasn't now staring at him like a villain unmasked. Far down the street, the sound of another siren began to rise, this time, not from his unit. And then, but she didn't scream. She didn't cry. She didn't lose her composure. Instead, she took a deep breath and met the officer's gaze. What happened next was something no one expected. The woman straightened up, adjusting her jacket collar as if the blow had been little more than an inconvenience. Her gaze, now cold and focused, pierced through Officer Hayes. For the first time in his career, a flicker of doubt crept into his mind. This wasn't fear. What he saw in her eyes was something far more dangerous. Discipline, control, power. "Officer," she said, her voice calm, almost surgical in its precision, "you just made a grave mistake." Hayes snorted, trying to shake off the unease tightening his chest. "Oh yeah? And what exactly are you going to do about it? You're just a civilian. I'm the authority here. Now open the damn bag, or I'll arrest you for resisting." The woman didn't flinch. Instead, she stepped forward, her movements fluid but firm. The street had gone quiet again, all eyes locked on the confrontation. "My name," she said evenly, "is Jasmine Carter. I served in the United States Marine Corps. I was a SEAL for 8 years. I've deployed to combat zones you've only seen in documentaries. So before you throw around that badge like a weapon, I suggest you think long and hard about what you're really doing." Hayes blanched. For a second, the badge on his chest felt less like a shield and more like a target. Jasmine didn't shout. She didn't grandstand. She didn't need to. Every word she spoke tightened the noose of accountability around his neck. "You think your military record puts you above the law?" He barked, but the bite was gone from his voice. It trembled at the edges. Jasmine tilted her head slightly, studying him like a surgeon inspecting a wound. "No, but it reminds me what real discipline looks like. It reminds me how power should be used, with restraint, with reason, and with responsibility. You've forgotten that." She took a step back, raising her hand slightly. "I'm not here to escalate, but if you ever put your hands on me again, I won't need to lift a finger for justice to find you." Before Hayes could respond, the crowd intervened. "I saw the whole thing," shouted a man in a gray business suit. "She didn't do anything wrong. You hit her for no reason." Others echoed the claim. Dozens of phones were recording now, capturing Hayes' flushed face, his twitching fingers, his collapsing confidence. Someone whispered the words that would change everything. "She's going viral." Hayes looked around, suddenly aware of the hundreds of digital eyes on him. For the first time in his career, he realized he wasn't in control. He stepped back clumsily, raising his hands as if he could erase what had happened with a gesture. All right, he mumbled. "No harm done. Let's all just calm down." But the damage was irreversible. Jasmine remained still, eyes fixed on him. She didn't need to speak again. Her silence screamed louder than any protest. She picked up her backpack with dignity, slung it over her shoulder, and turned to leave. But before stepping off the curb, she glanced back one last time. "Remember," she said, her voice like ice, "authority doesn't give you the right to abuse. It gives you the responsibility to protect. Your actions today won't go unanswered." And she was right. That night, the video swept across social media like wildfire. Clips were uploaded with hashtags. Hashtag Justice for Jasmine. Hashtag Police Accountability. Hashtag Philly Incident. Witness testimonies flooded the comment sections. The footage was damning, both from phones and a nearby security camera. Every second was time-stamped. Every word, every movement, preserved in pixels.by morning, the police department had issued a vague statement about reviewing officer conduct. But the pressure from the public was relentless. Protesters gathered outside the precinct by noon. News outlets picked up the story, digging into Hayes' record, uncovering past complaints that had quietly disappeared into internal files. Within 48 hours, Officer Ethan Hayes was suspended without pay pending investigation. 3 days later, he resigned. As for Jasmine, she didn't hold press conferences. She didn't campaign for attention. She didn't need to. Her presence, her control in the face of humiliation, spoke louder than any microphone ever could. She returned home, resumed her life, and watched as justice took its slow but certain course in the following weeks. Her story inspired editorials, op-eds, and panel discussions about the abuse of power, racial profiling, and the strength of veterans returning to civilian life. Jasmine declined interviews, but quietly supported nonprofits advocating for police reform and racial justice. When a journalist finally caught up with her and asked why she didn't retaliate in that moment, she simply replied, "I fought enemies abroad to protect the idea of dignity. Why would I abandon it here at home?" The slap had triggered an earthquake, but not one of chaos. It was one of awakening, and everyone felt the aftershock